It's Backstage on Second City Radio. 3:30 already. Where's the last hour and a half gone? I'm with you through until 4 o'clock. And guess what? Only Joe McElderry to come. 90 minutes time, Joe McElderry, you're going to take to the stage of the Gordon Craig Theatre here in Stevenage for the second night of your 2018 tour. How does the next 90 minutes pan out for you? What do you do?
Well, we do a meet and greet before the show, and then just kind of about an hour before the show, I kind of chill, have a coffee, maybe a bit of food, and then get ready for the show. You know, it's touring for me is kind of where I'm most relaxed. You know, I know the routines, I know the shows, I know the music. It's not a kind of, I only really get nervous for the show about 15 minutes before, so I can kind of relax until that point, unless we're doing something new, obviously. But we did the show last week in Southend, we opened, and so now everybody's kind of, it's embedded in, we know what we're doing, so you can just kind of chill and enjoy it.
So how do you relax? Does the iPad come out?
It does. iPad, maybe watch a few box sets. That is kind of the obsession on tour, shall we say. Box sets, lots of long journeys, lots of travelling. Or sometimes, you know, if I'm really tired, maybe a little sleep, but I tend not to nap before shows because it takes us too long to wake up.
Oh, it's horrible.
Oh, it's horrible. I have jet lag.
That's that groggy feeling. Yeah, it's so absolutely fine.
Sometimes a workout, it just depends, you know. Sometimes we go out for a bit of food somewhere if we can get out of the venue for 5. But mostly I just chill, you know, sit there, catch up with people, phone calls, business, all those boring things.
Do you sit in your dressing room and listen to the sort of mounting excitement as the audience come in? Because, you know, we are 90 minutes away. There's a load of people outside already, and they're really excited about you being here.
Well, you get some theatres have the relay where you can hear the audience in the dressing room. And that's more for kind of musical theatre shows, so you know when to go on. But I kind of like to have that on in the background and hear the hustle and bustle of people coming in, the warm-up music and stuff. But it's I enjoy it all, you know. It's all kind of part of the excitement and kind of building up. And you know, like when you at the beginning of a show, it's kind of like getting ready to run a marathon. You know, you're kind of in control of everything, and everything kind of lands on your shoulders. So you've got to be in the right frame of mind. So I kind of just prepare for that, you know. And it is a bit like getting slapped in the face the minute the curtain opens. It's like, oh, I'm here in front of all of these people. Okay,
well, it's your name, or it's your name on the door, isn't it? That's the thing. So how do you make sure you hit your mark and you hit your energy level at sort of 7:30 when curtain goes up? Is that Dr. Footlights?
I think it's nerves. It's the adrenaline. You know, the adrenaline certainly gives you that kind of second wind that you get straight away, kind of thing. Yeah, the minute the curtain opens, it's game on. You know, you've got to bring it for the audience.
So how do you put a tour together? How does it work?
It varies. It varies from tour to tour. This was quite an organic kind of process in the sense of that. With the kind of production and everything like that, we wanted to kind of strip it. I did a big tour last year, and we went all over the UK, and I had special guests, and it was very kind of glitzy.
I wasn't asked.
What would you have sang?
Whatever, you name it, I'd have cleared the place.
We could put you on at the end then.
Probably goodbye, to be fair.
But with this, we kind of wanted to make it kind of like a live loungy feel, strip things back a little bit, make it more about just the band and me, and really kind of make it that kind of living room feel, so that it's not as like in your face, it's not as kind of lights and everything, it's a bit more kind of chilled. We still have the full band feel in the sense of that the music and the musicality of the show is still very much kind of in your face, but everything else we've kind of pulled back and made it a bit more like we're performing in your living room. You know, like a bit more relaxed.
Well, as I say, it is very excitable outside, so I'm guessing actually whatever you do, the fans are going to love. But in some ways, sometimes small is better. It becomes a bit more intimate. You feel, probably from an audience point of view, more part of it.
You do. I've been very, very fortunate to play huge venues, medium-sized venues, small venues. Last year we played a lot of big venues on the tour. We're playing some big ones on this, some a little bit more intimate, some very up close and personal. But
aren't they the scary ones, though, when you can see the whites of the eyes?
Well, there's nowhere to hide, first of all, in that sense. But at the same time as well, you do get that instant reaction from an audience, you know? That sometimes gets lost in a bigger venue as well. You get that kind of, you can feel it the minute you step on, you can see people. Whereas sometimes you play big venues and you could only see the first 4 rows, and then it's literally like singing into a black hole. So I enjoy the variety, you know, that. And with each tour, we do different venues and different sizes, depending where we go. And I love that, you know. I like kind of getting to play in new venues that I've never played before.
But I suspect there's an awful lot of people follow Joe McElderry around. I reckon you probably know at least 20% of the audience when you take to the stage.
I've been very, very fortunate, you know. I've had a great supportive fan base that have literally, some have been here since day one, you know, some have joined the madness on the way. I do call it madness because it is madness. My life is pretty mad. We can't do it without them, you know. We can't do any of this, you know. You can put on a show, but if nobody wants to come and see it, and if nobody buys an album, or, you know, if I do the musical theatre, if nobody comes and buys, I can't do any of it without them. So I'm very, very fortunate that I have them.
I'm kind of glad you said about the madness, because I want to ask you a question that I've never asked anyone before. Well, certainly no one called Joe McElderry before. But what's it like being you since the X Factor? How has your life changed?
It's a weird kind of thing to comment on, because it's kind of...
Well, it's a horrible question, because it makes me sound like I'm asking, you know, I'm asking you.
And I hate talking about myself in the third person, but
exactly.
It's... I don't think it ever becomes normal. I think it becomes... You get used to it, and you get used to it being your job, I think.
Because I'm guessing it wasn't that you were craving, it was the fact you wanted to perform.
Yeah, I just wanted to go out on the road and tour, yeah. I don't think it ever gets normal, but it does become like... You know what you have to do, and you know why you're there, and you know what you're doing, kind of thing. I certainly know what I'm doing now in my job, whereas I didn't in the beginning. So it was very intense in the beginning, because I was trying to learn how to survive in a very ruthless industry, first of all, and also just finding my feet as a performer, finding what worked for me, finding how to combat nerves, you know, all of those things that most people would do behind the scenes, I had to kind of do in front of everybody. And I was a kid, you know, I was growing up into a man. I was 18, turned 19 on the... Well, turned 18 on the show.
Oh, stop it.
I did, so I felt very young, you know, and when I look back now, I think, oh my God, like, how did I cope with that? But I still find it weird now to call it a job, because it doesn't feel like a job. I find it stressful at times, and it's intense, but in an enjoyable way, if that makes sense. I do it because I love it. So when people say, you know, what's it like doing this as a job, it feels weird, because it doesn't feel like work.
It strikes me that the job, the making the music, is the good part. Yeah. It's the fact that you have to now live your life through lenses, you know, people taking selfies, the newspaper interest, and so that's the hard bit, and that's really hard at 18, 19, isn't it? No one wants that.
It is, but you know, I've never been one to sit and complain about it, because at the same time, it all works hand in hand, and it's all part of the industry, and it's all part of showbiz, and it drives me insane when people complain about it. You know, when people whinge on about how terrible it is, everybody knowing your name and blah, blah. It's like, oh, get over yourself, you know. It's part of the job. Take it with a pinch of salt, and if you really don't like it, don't be in this business. Do you know what I mean? It's pretty simple. So you've got to just kind of get on with it and take it with a pinch of salt. And I don't play with that. I respect it for what it is. I respect fame. It kind of sits on my shoulder, and I know it's there, but I kind of, other than that, I don't deal with it. I just kind of leave it to its own devices, and I think that's the best way to do it. Otherwise, it gets messy when you start trying to play with it and mess around with it, you know? And
you don't win.
Exactly.
Musical theatre has featured in your career since the X Factor as well. And Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, which of course 50 years this year, or I think it was last year actually, that it celebrated its 50 years. And you are literally fresh from performing in front of your peers at the Royal Albert Hall. Yes. Now that's not an intimate gig at all, is it?
It's not an intimate gig. It's not an intimate gig, and it's also not a very forth. What should I say? How do I word this? I always think it's like kind of standing up in the school assembly. You know, it's like standing in the school assembly in front of people who all know who you are, and they're all work peers, and you want to try and be really cool, you know? Do you know what I mean? So I was really nervous.
It didn't show.
Well, I've learned how to hide my nerves, I think. But I was nervous. You know, it's some of those people in that audience are legends, icons, and hugely successful and hugely talented in their own rights of doing incredible shows and performances and albums and all sorts, directors, producers. So it was a big audience for me, you know. It wasn't just one of them ones, let's go out and do a show and have a bit of fun. I was like, you cannot mess up in front of these people because they're all sat like with their arms crossed and they're like, come on, then show us what you've got here.
I have to say, they weren't that nice an audience watching the TV
highlights. Award ceremonies never are, you know. They're never kind of those audiences where they get up and clap and sing along. And I knew that because I've been to many of them awards before. And whenever
you've been one of those people with your arms crossed saying, "Come on, then, entertain
it's just that intense kind of TV filmed award ceremony vibe that it happens at every award ceremony. But I knew that was going to happen as well, so I was like, just look up to all the people who've paid for the tickets and who actually want to be here.
Yes, true. And that's actually, do you know what? That's a really good way of doing it. But I mean, that's a very special thing. It was lovely as well.
It was wonderful.
I have to say, and I've seen you play Joseph, and you play Joseph very well. I was concentrating on Lindsay Haitley. She's the lady that does it for me. She was my first sort of foray into Joseph, and she's part of the reason why I do what I do today.
She's a lovely lady as well. Very talented. Very, very talented. It was really nice to meet, obviously, people where Joseph has become such a huge part of their careers, you know. Obviously, Jason Donovan, Lee Mead, Lindsay, Priya and Danielle. They've all kind of had huge careers from Andrew Lloyd Webber's music, you know, and we all had that kind of special connection, so it was really nice to do it together.
But Joe, you got the coat.
Everybody said that.
You got the coat.
I feel like I've snatched it off everyone. Everyone's like, you got the coat. I suppose maybe it's because I'm doing Joseph at the minute, and I'm probably the most current.
Yes.
The one who's kind of recently just finished it.
Yes.
I think that was the only reason. I don't think there was anything else behind it.
I suspect the other two have outgrown their coats, to be fair.
They both look fantastic, though.
Yeah, they do.
I couldn't believe how fantastic Jason Donovan looks.
I know.
He looks incredible.
It's sickening, isn't it? In fact, he looks better now than he did sort of 25 years ago when you did the role. So the tour finishes at the end of May, and then is it back into Joseph?
No. We're kind of working on new music, new material. I've been in the studio doing some writing and recording. Hopefully we'll do a new album in the summer, but that's kind of not set in stone yet. It's just a case of finding the right material and working out what kind of the theme of the album's going to be. And then there's a few projects, hopefully, towards the end of the year. Nothing I can reveal yet, but if it happens, it'll be very exciting. So fingers crossed. My life is always last minute. It's always fun, and there's always something going on. So I'm sure it'll be marvellous whatever happens.
I had the pleasure of talking to you over the phone a couple of years ago, and I put out on Twitter, my Twitter thing just went absolutely through the roof. It was so funny at the time, of asking your fans to ask you questions. Yeah. And one of them I remember asking was about Strictly. So come on, 2018. You said you'd like to do it.
I'd love to do it.
Producers, if you're listening.
I would love to do Strictly. It's such a fun show. I mean, I think I put a lot of pressure on myself, though, because I'd probably have to try and win it after me streak of winning the last reality shows.
But how are you going to cope with the likes of Craig Revel Horwood putting you down?
I've dealt with Simon Cowell. I can deal with Craig Revel Horwood.
Putty in your
I've dealt with far worse in my career than Craig Revel Horwood, let me tell you that.
Well, listen.
Just it's been behind the scenes. People haven't seen it on television.
You enjoy the tour. I'm looking forward to seeing the show tonight. It's been a pleasure to meet you, John McElderry.
I hope you enjoy it.
I'm sure I will.